Don't think healthcare professionals have any business experience? Think again. No topic is off limits as we share tales from our brave hosts who will always tell it like it is. We are #NoFilterHealthcare. Here to guide you through your healthcare journey are your hosts, Taylor Dunn and Tamara Donda. We want to thank our sponsor, Uptime Health, the leading healthcare equipment and compliance management software company, for bringing this podcast to fruition. Visit uptimehealth.com to learn more. Let's get started.
All right, welcome to #NoFilterHealthcare. I'm your co-host, Taylor Dunn.
And I'm your other co-host, Tamara Donda, and today we have our guest speaker, Amanda Hill, who is a clinical education manager at Young Innovations.
Welcome to the podcast, Amanda.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, we can't wait to get right into it, and so happy to have you on today's episode. And I want to know more. I want to know exactly what your role is with Young Innovations, and also, what kind of products and solutions you guys are providing currently to the dental industry. So let's hear it.
Absolutely. Well, I am the clinical education manager here at Young Innovations, but I am also a dental hygienist and have been a dental hygienist for over 25 years. So I come to this education space very honestly because this is what I know. This is what I do. And so I get this awesome job of just learning, and I am this perpetual learner, and love to continue to learn. And then I get to share my knowledge with clinicians and with other people within the dental space. And so sometimes I'm training different companies that maybe sell our products, or offering continuing education to other dental professionals. And so Young Innovations has a huge house of brand of products. And in fact, as a relatively new employee, I'm constantly going, oh my gosh, we have that too. We have that too. And so we have our preventative line, which includes American Eagle Instruments and Denicator and Delish and fluorides. But then we have our infection control space, which includes Biotrol and Defend bags, our autoclave bags, and Biorex and Opticide and Vacusol and Crystal Tips, and in Canada, Germafene. And then we also have a restorative line, which is the micro brushes, and then and more, and then a specialty line, which includes plaque smacker and implant orthograft and Puragraft and those kind of things. So lots of different products within the Young Innovations house of brands.
Yeah, I love it. Well, so I have heard from multiple people that you are very passionate about infection control, which I love. I'm passionate about it as well. I think it's such an important aspect of healthcare in general, but unfortunately, it can be overlooked. I feel that anytime I'm talking to dental professionals, they're saying, how important it is and how they're always looking for new ways to improve infection control measures and those quality controls. So, since we're called #NoFilterHealthcare, we really just want to kind of uncover how you think infection control is currently being neglected by dental offices. And I don't want to make that sound like it's coming off as a bad thing, because honestly, sometimes they don't even realize it's happening.
Absolutely. Well, so I actually broke into sort of this speaking and educating space with infection control, and it was with dental unit water lines. I like to call myself the waterline warrior. And that's how I started educating. Was I didn't know anything about dental unit water lines. I went to a CE. I learned, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be doing this. Went back to my office and started doing it, and then started talking to my fellow professionals, and they didn't know either. And so then I started to lecture on it and write on it. And this is the big thing, is we don't know. There is so much to know when it comes to dental infection control. And we learn what we learn in school if we're licensed professionals. But unfortunately, the way that dentistry works is often in many states, it's the dental assistant that's put in charge of infection control, who very well might have worked at Burger King the day before and is required to have absolutely no training in order to do this. I started in dentistry at the age of 15 with no training. I remember reaching my bare hand into cold sterile glutaraldehyde, and because I didn't know any better. And so we leave this role often to somebody who has no training and expect them to know all the things. And how on earth are you going to know all the things, and unless you've gone through some kind of training to understand what it is? And they're changing all the time. And some of the work feels like busy work because it's paperwork. And who really likes paperwork, right? I would love at some point one day down the road to write a course called How Not to Kill People. And we could really just dive into what you have to do so you don't kill people. And that would include your dental unit water lines. That would include sterilizing your hygiene handpieces between every single patient. And some of those things are things that when I started in dentistry 25 plus years ago, we didn't do. And so we didn't know. And so if you're not continually taking infection control courses and staying on top of things and having a compliance specialist come in to help you, you don't know what you have to do. And so it's a lot of work to stay on top of it all.
Yeah. I think it's important to note that it's okay to not know, but what are you going to do about it? So, making the move to actually get educated on how to improve.
And speaking of education, right? So, as a clinical educator, I am actually very curious on how you actually go about educating these dental offices, right? Because there are so many different processes in place, so many things that they need to know. So, kind of, what do you do, or what kind of methods do you apply to help them, get it right?
Well, we're just about to launch something new, so I'm so glad you asked. We actually, at Young Innovations, are about to launch a new on demand webinar called Taking Control of Infection Control. And this is something that offices can they can click on a link, they can take this 1 hour CE course that kind of gives you just a basic overview of CDC and OSHA guidelines. And then we will have one of our clinical education specialists actually do a walkthrough with your infection control coordinator, because every office should have an infection control coordinator who is trained, by the way. So don't just give somebody the job without training them, because otherwise, how do you know what to do? But we'll do a walkthrough with their infection control coordinator, kind of really helping them with maybe where some of their sticking points are and where there is confusion, because there is a lot of confusion out there when it comes to infection control. So that should launch soon. So you can check out the youngdental.com website under continuing education and be able to take that webinar and maybe learn a thing or two.
It's obviously obvious, right? That like your portfolio within your company is just so robust, right?
Yes.
Now bringing out this, education style platform. So, how do you guys keep this organized, right? You have such a large portfolio. How do you, find products to include, right? Because innovation is kind of sparking around all of the healthcare industry. So, do you have like a vetting process, or how does that all work?
Well, I have to say, thankfully, that part's not my job. So I have a list of all the companies, and I often have to look back at it again. But thankfully, we have an amazing team at Young Innovations that really spends time looking at products and looking at the products that are going to really help the dental professionals be able to do their job efficiently and effectively. I mean, because that's the big thing that it all comes down to, right? We in dentistry are always strapped for time. So how do we add in more infection control procedures, which have come on? I mean, COVID, gave us even more things that we have to do. And so how do we add these products in that will help us be successful to be able to have safe dental visits, to not kill people, to not get in trouble, right? But to be able to still do it in the amount of time that we have, because after all, it's still a business, right? And so we also have to look at cost too, right? And so thankfully, the team at Young has done an amazing job of really building this great portfolio of really efficient and effective products. I mean, we talk about Byrex spray and wipes. You look at those, they have a great 2-minute kill time. That's a great way to turn a room over fast. There's lots of great, like VacuSol, which is a great product for being able to clean your suction lines, but not just, it has a great atomizer, so you can put your suction lines on there and it cleans the inside of the lines, which is going to help you control aerosols better and keep your entire team safe. And one product that I, wasn't super familiar with until I joined Young was Crystal Tip, which is a disposable air water syringe tip, which has 2 separate chambers, one for water and one for air, so you never get wet air. And you're like, wet air? Why does that matter? Well, that really matters when you're trying to dry a tooth that needs to be dry before you put some kind of composite on it or some kind of material on it. And so those are great products that then you can just dispose of, and you don't have to worry about it not getting clean in the little chambers of that air water syringe tip, because that's kind of gross. And so we do have these really cool different products that will help offices be able to have that infection control, but have it in a timely manner.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm going to throw, a random question in there. I'm just, as we're talking to you, I'm just curious, when you're educating and lecturing on infection control, so what is there ever that moment that occurs that you're like, oh my gosh, the whole audience, everyone that's listening is having that aha moment, like, oh wow, like if you can tell me what that moment is, I'm just curious.
I think the one thing that I lecture on the most is water lines and suction lines. So I told you I call myself the water line warrior. I also call myself the line leader. So, because who didn't love being the line leader in first grade? Like, that was the best job ever. Everybody had to do what you said.
That's
Anyway,
right.
but when I talk about dental unit water lines and how that can actually affect our patients, there's a real aha moment when I'll talk about the case in Anaheim, where there was over 200 children sickened with Mycobacterium abscessus. And the symptoms that showed up with these kids, over 200 children, the symptoms showed up between 1 and 409 days later. Meaning, there was a child that all of a sudden got this massive infection 409 days after their dental treatment. So what some people will say to me when I'm talking about dental unit water lines, they'll say, well, Amanda, I've never killed anybody. You can say, you know what? You actually don't know that, because who on earth will go have some sort of major illness? It's like that Thai food, that upset stomach you had, and was it the Thai food, or was it the cart from Target, or was it, the person that you sat next to on the airplane? Like, where did that come from? We're getting way better at contact tracing. And so we're understanding now how to link back infections. And so I think it's really important that we understand that, yes, while we don't know that we haven't ever harmed somebody, and we've been in the dental industry for 30 years, that the idea is that there's more that we can do, because it can happen, and it does happen. And so it's our job as dental professionals to make every dental visit the safest dental visit that we can absolutely make it.
That's mind blowing to me. When you told me about that, I was like, I cannot believe that. I mean, amazing though that you're able to track that now, and really pinpoint how it's happening, why it's happening, and what to do about it. So, yeah, I definitely would have that aha moment there as well.
Right? You're like, oh my gosh, this really happens. People really actually get hurt by this. Okay, I need to get in the game. And it's funny, when we always think healthcare, you think gloves, right? Everybody wears gloves. We know to wear gloves, right? It wasn't until 1991 that the American Dental Association mandated the use of gloves. And
Hey.
and when that happened, they actually fought it, because they said it was going to be expensive, and they said it didn't affect enough people to actually mandate the use of gloves. And now we can't even think about not wearing gloves, right? I mean, you never would put your hands in somebody's mouth barehanded.
No.
And so the idea is, as these changes come, and they do occur, and they do at the beginning seem burdensome. Oh my gosh, what do you mean I have to test water? What do you mean I have to autoclave a handpiece between every patient? But you know what? At some point, if we continue to accept these changes and we continue to understand the why behind the changes, it makes them much easier to implement. And maybe people will then not just be compliant, but they will get really on board and be kind of celebrate all they're doing to keep everybody safe.
Right. And we're trying to do that with Uptime Health too. So, when we're tracking all of the infection control tasks that are happening, it's providing back the clinic with feedback that they can review and say, oh, wow, look at what my facilities are doing to maintain infection control measures and improve quality of care. It's just, I feel like the industry as a whole is really evolving, and just, it's amazing what everyone's doing. So,
and one of the things that I think is super cool about your platform is it's a great way to give that feedback to people to understand, okay, this is what I'm doing. But one thing I encourage offices to do is, infection control takes time and it takes money, right? You should use that as a marketing tool for your patients. Let your patients know all that you are doing to keep them safe.
Right.
And so show them your waterline tests. Show them how, every day, this is what we do. Like, this is what we do to keep you safe. And so use that in your marketing materials, because then, patients are nervous already. And then they see that and they're like, oh, this office cares and loves me. Look at what they're doing to keep me safe.
Yeah, I think Tamara's probably like, that's music to my ears because that's all she's marketing.
Absolutely. It's a huge, huge deal, to provide not only value, right, but safety, right, security, all the things that people really look for, especially in healthcare, man. You can't mess around with that.
No.
So the more that you're open about what you're doing in your internal processes, I think the more people feel, that they're a part of it and that they want to return. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah, well, it was really great to have you on today's episode, Amanda, and we hope that we're able to educate, our listeners today by providing some insight into infection control, why it's so important to turn infection control into measurable data, which we see we're doing, so, and how we can improve upon it. So if you'd like to learn more about Young Innovations, you can visit ydnt.com. Did I get that right?
That's it. Yeah.
And please make sure you subscribe to our podcast or comment below if you have any questions for us. Thanks again, Amanda.
Thanks for having me.